The kings and queens of Scotland are generally buried in many different places. Following the death of Queen Elizabeth I, the Scottish monarchs became the rulers of England, and many Stuarts are buried today inside of Westminster Abbey, inside of the vaults there. This includes James I. He was the first Stuart, and even Mary Queen of Scots, who was executed, is buried in a vault under an elaborate tomb of her. Earlier kings are buried in many different places. For example, Robert the Bruce's body is buried in Dunfermline Abbey, but his heart is buried inside of Melrose Abbey. His embalmed viscera is believed to also be interred inside of a church in Dumbarton. There is only one real royal vault to the Scottish kings and queens, and this has been opened many times and has been subjected to a huge amount of desecration and destruction. Even the abbey where it sits today, Holyrood Abbey, next to the incredible Palace of Holyrood House. But what is inside of this royal vault today, and what happened to the remains inside of it? To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. Holyrood Abbey is today a ruined abbey, and it was founded in the early 12th century by King David I of Scotland. During the 15th century, the guest house of the abbey became a royal residence, and then this later expanded to become the Palace of Holyrood House. The abbey has been ruined since the 18th century as the roof collapsed in 2 stages, and today it still stands without a roof on. But it was here that a royal vault existed, and still today it can be found in the corner of the abbey. This vault once contained the remains of many kings and queens. Originally buried in here was King David II, who was interred in 1371, and King James II was buried there in 1460. Others interred were Arthur, the Duke of Rothesay, Madeline of Valois, the teenage bride of James V, James, the Duke of Rothesay, Arthur, the Duke of Albany, King James V, the father of Mary Queen of Scots, Henry Stuart, Lord Darnley, Mary Queen of Scots' husband, Margaret, the daughter of James VI, and Mary of Geldres, and a child of King James II. But during the Anglo-Scottish Wars, during the reign of King Henry VIII, the English attacked the abbey and they sacked it, and they broke into the royal vaults. They caused a huge amount of damage and they ransacked the burials, destroying many of the coffins and decoration inside of the vault. Later, a Protestant mob in 1559 did the same, breaking into the church and causing further damage, and they also destroyed the altars on this occasion. Because of the damage and destruction, the General Assembly of the Church of Scotland decided to demolish the east end of the abbey's church, and the royal tombs and coffins were removed to a new burial vault which was constructed on the south side of the nave. But this would not be the end of the desecration. Towards the end of King James VII's reign, this vault was ransacked, and it was said that the contents of the vault were left in disorder, and it's presumed that the coffins and remains were scattered and left in a terrible way. One man who visited Holyrood in the 17th century and looked inside of the royal vault later claimed, in the month of January 1683 was discovered accidentally by removing some seats in the church of Holyrood, the vault on the south-east end of the church, where the body of King James V lies buried. John Keane and others in their chronologies, the Scots king tells us he was buried at Holyrood House, but the length of time and negligence had worse the particular place out of the memory of men. It was known to be him by an inscription on his leaden coffin. I had the curiosity to go and view the relics of the gallant prince. In the Pend of Cell there are 6 lead coffins. The first is King James V, who died in the year 1542, but Drummond of Hawthorndean is in the very end of his life tells us this is not the place where he was first interred, but that King Henry VIII's army, having defeated and defaced his tomb and monument, he was transported into this vault by King James VI and re-embalmed, which appears by the freshness of his body and the liquor about him. The second is his queen, Magdalene, daughter to Francis I, King of France, who died in 1537. The third is Henry Lord Darnley, father to King James VI and Queen Mary's husband, who was strangled in 1567. By his body he appears to have been a very tall, proper man. Others call this body Signor David Rizzio, the Italian musician. The fourth is Lady Jean Stuart, daughter to King James V and Countess of Agril, who died in 1587. The other two are some of their children. He later went on to state, "This was a humbling and mortifying sight, and a great instance and document of mortality and vanity of the world, all the glory of the sprightly prince being crowded into this lowly cell. Many ordinary persons have better burial places than what this restless prince got." He then, it's believed, looked inside the coffins too and claimed, "All the inhabitants of that dark wall have lean and pale cheeks, hollow eyes, fallen noses, and none of them wear the jewels and other deckings with which they glistened when they were of life. We must all rise again at the great day of accounts of kings of old, but very meanly entombed." Because of the state of this royal burial vault, in 1898, Queen Victoria ordered a repair of the vault once and for all, and it was stated that the remains of the burial should have been given some dignity. Because of this, the remains were all collected up. They were placed inside of this new wooden box, presumably all mixed up. One thing to also mention is that the remains of Mary of Gueldres, the Queen of King James II, was actually interred inside the vault later in 1848, as they were moved from Trinity Church in Edinburgh. These were kept inside of separate coffins. Compared with the burial vaults of Westminster Abbey, the vault inside of Holyrood Abbey was desecrated many times and it was ransacked. The vault that stands today was created later, and this was subjected to a significant amount of destruction too. Inside of Holyrood Abbey, this vault still exists, and the bones have all been collected to be placed inside of one large coffin. Thank you for watching, and to support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. And again, thank you so much for watching.